Hi guys. Okay, you will notice me posting videos erratically over the next few days, and it is because I am ahead in preparing videos and behind in posting because we are on level 6 load shedding, which means 2.5 hours to 4 hours without power, 5 hours with power, and then again 2.5 to 4 hours without. Um, we have never before had it like this, and there is always something amiss, no matter how hard you try to prepare. Either a laptop or a phone not charged, or like today, a noise because it is the only time our local council can drill a hole in a pavement, and it just so happened that it's during the same time as I wish to record. Meanwhile, it is not just our time and productivity which suffers, but these cuts don't always happen exactly on the hour and don't always come on the half an hour. Sometimes it is 5 or 10 minutes before or 5 or 10 minutes after, and it often comes with surges destroying electronics, alarm systems, and electrical devices. And only yesterday, I paid 1,444 Rand for repairs on a laptop. Okay, so I, like many other people in this country, have basically had enough. And the worst is that it's all due to the many things that you all struggle with in other countries as well, although maybe with slightly different results. Incompetence, mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, wokery, you name it, it will apply in this scenario and obviously many scenarios in your own countries. What angers me in my country is the sheer and utter naivety of the people. This is not the first month or even the first year we are going through this. This had been going for years now. Our government have not been able to solve this problem in 14 years because April 2008 was the first time we had pre-planned outages like we do now, just not the same severity. Yet time and time again, and I must say again, this same party is voted back into power. And not because they are competent, but because one of their skin color and secondly of our history. Yet history is not going to save our future. Yes, of course, we can learn from our history, and of course, mistakes have been made in the past, but we need not live in the past, and we need to focus on the future. In my country, like in yours, there is so much to be positive about, so much beauty and good, but it is totally spoiled by some unexplainable stupidity. And let me again explain and show examples. And at this point, I'm asking you to hang in there for me because I am going somewhere with this. In our area, there had been roadworks for years. We have a beautiful road starting just outside of town, a road basically going nowhere as it only serves the farming community. And eventually it just links back into the main road going to our larger neighboring town. However, inside of our little town, where everybody drives on a daily basis, the roads are barely existent with huge potholes. Now explain to me, why would you spend millions of your annual budget to build a road which is used by maximum 20 or 30 people daily, but not the ones used by hundreds of people on a daily basis. Now, explain to me why someone with criminal convictions spanning years for such crimes as fraud and theft and even other things is constantly voted back into local government office time and time again. Corruption is meandering into our schools and education system. Now, for fear of retribution, I won't go into details, but I personally witnessed unacceptable behavior by a teacher, and eventually I came to hear that I wasn't the only person to do so. It was decided to hold a closed meeting, which was by invite only. And firstly, from the 22, I think, parents invited, only 5 pitched up. As a result of the meeting, a letter was written to the Department of Education and a copy was handed to a senior police officer. To this very day, nothing had been done. Parents who can now afford it took their children out of the school and is now sponsoring or paying for a bus to take their children to school in a neighboring town. We, personally, in my home, we are homeschooling my grandson, which in itself is expensive and time consuming. And the first year, we were also only able to do so because we got help from a family member and a friend of mine living in Britain. But what about those children whose parents cannot afford to do either? What about those children? But again, it appears as if that is not important because what is important is who we are dealing with and who they are connected to, etc., etc. Anyway, do all these things mean that I hate my country? I hate the people and every single person in our government? No, of course I don't. In every walk of life and every aspect of every scenario, there is indeed the good and bad, the positive and negative. If only there was less corruption and if only there was more justice and more discipline. And here I find myself an outsider looking in, and I see things happening in your country, happening right in front of my eyes, and I recognize it because I had seen it before. And then I'm told that one, it has nothing to do with me, or two, I hate the British, or three, I hate the monarchy. There are even creators on this very platform who will go on half an hour or an hour after I posted a video and will basically say exactly what I said in my video and without giving me any credit or even acknowledging me, yet people will hang on to his or her lips and subscribe because he or she is British. But okay, let's put that aside and let's go back to the point I'm trying so hard to make. Over the weekend, I read an article about Prince Charles accepting cash from Qatari former Prime Minister. And if you actually bother to finish reading the article, which some people do not bother doing, you will notice that it did not only happen once, but it happened at least 3 times. Once he accepted a suitcase full of cash, allegedly €1 million. The second time, shopping bags full of cash, allegedly another €1 million. And on the third time, he apparently accepted some kind of hold all or sports bag with cash, allegedly another €1 million. Now, what irks me more than the fact that Charles took the money, that untraceable cash, is the fact that people, members of the public, are already jumping to his defense and getting quite heated when you dare point out the facts. All I can do is hold my head in my hands in utter despair. So, in one last effort to explain it to those who are so blinded by childlike admiration and adoration that they cannot see or imagine the ugly truth, let me put it to you like this. These days, when we need to pay a large or large-ish amount to someone for whatever reason, we mostly do so electronically, be it via the internet at our homes or offices, or bank machines, or for those few who still do not trust these methods or themselves, from inside a bank. We do this instead of using cash for one, our personal safety, and two, in order to have a record of our payment. Here in South Africa, I know of very, very few people, if any, who still use checkbooks. But while in Canada, I saw that people still send checks in the mail. However, like an electronic transfer, that check is your receipt once it clears. And once again, there is proof of payment. And I'm asking you, as a level-headed, intelligent person, who on earth hands $1 million, £1 million, £1 million, or even £1 million to anyone in a suitcase these days? I'll tell you who: drug dealers, embezzlers, blackmailers, and the like. People who, for some reason, do not want the money, or at least all of it, to go through legal channels, who does not want the world and his buddy to know and question it. And unfortunately, the recipient is often as guilty as the giver. Reading the rest of the article, you will read that a statement had been issued stating that Charles is innocent of any wrongdoing, as the money went directly to his charity, the Prince's Trust. Well, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, a trust is not a charity. Yes, indeed, it can be used for charitable purposes, but it is not a charity in itself. A trust and all the assets in a trust is owned by the holder or the person or entity who established the trust, and after his death, by his children or family or whoever is named to take over and inherit the trust. A trust safeguards whatever is held in this trust from claims arising from other business and personal endeavors. So not only is there no way for any of you to know whether the full donation actually went to the trust, but even if it did, it still does not matter. It still basically belongs to Charles to dispense and use as he wishes. What these defenders are also forgetting is that this is not the first time there are talks of improprieties, improper dealings, actions, and behaviors concerning Charles's charities and trusts. I did a few videos on this already, and I'll list them in the description box below. But I'll quickly list them for you just as a reminder. Most recently, there was the Cash for Honours issue with Dr. Bin Mafus. Then there was the money Charles received from Robert Wang, the donation from Russian Dmitry Lius, and then the matter of his Prince's Trust Foundation for Integrated Health, a so-called charity which was closed down following a fraud investigation, whereafter two men actually went to jail for theft and fraud. And of course, the matters of Michael Wynne Parker, who sold access to Charles, of which the largest portion after his fee was to go to none other than the Prince's Trust. And then the same goes for Camilla's nephew, Ben Elliot, who acted as a fixer selling access to Charles. Now dig deep into your souls and tell me that you honestly believe that Charles knew nothing about any of this each and every time. Seriously? Of course he knows when his charity or trust receives a large donation. He may not be told about each time £50 or £100 are donated, but for sure he will be informed when it is a large amount, say 100,000, 200,000, or a million. Of course he will be informed. And of course, he knew exactly what was going on with Dr. Mafus. He met the man numerous times. Of course, he knew where and from whom the €1,000,000 times three came from. It was, after all, handed to him, placed in his own hands. Now, I also reported on a matter Andrew was named in or involved in, where him, Sarah, and Eugenie received money from a rather shady financial advisor. And yes, people are keen to dissect that and rip Andrew and Sarah apart, even though that money, at least the part paid to Andrew, was paid back. But for many, that was just further proof of what a bad and shady person Andrew is. Yet his brother, the future king, does exactly the same thing and does it numerous times. And everybody jumps to his defense. I do not understand it. The newspapers and other media had started a campaign against Andrew for him to be shunned due to his friendship with Epstein. And yes, we know he also had a friendship of sorts with Nygard. But then what about Charles's friendships with Savile, Ball, and Van der Post? I have heard so many excuses. It makes my stomach turn. Oh, Savile's deeds were only discovered after his death. Not true. I've done a video on that as well. It was only the extent of his depravity which was discovered after his death. Yet the public and the media wants Andrew shunned to the extent where he cannot even attend the Royal Ascot horse races, which is basically open to the public or anyone who can afford a ticket. Yet it is okay for his brother to travel the world, become king, and the head of the Church of England. Seriously? I do not understand it. It makes no sense to me, just like it makes no sense to me as to why somebody with a criminal record gets voted back into local government here in South Africa time and time again. And you in England are doing exactly the same. So I'm on the outside looking in, recognizing these things, and it frustrates me. Now look, I certainly cannot stand that little Montecito yacht girl, okay? Ex-actress, duchess, princess. I truly can't, and like all of you, I absolutely flipped at her meddling in politics and poking her nose in where it does not belong. But how can I continue to do so with a clear conscience when a senior royal, the next king, is doing exactly the same. He has he has no business criticizing the British government and their policies. Not only does he not belong in politics, as one day he will be king of everyone, whether they right wing or left wing or blue or pink or whatever, but his latest meddling certainly shows very little regard for his own, the British public. I have said this before in another video. Resources, money, housing, healthcare, you name it, none of it is infinite. In my country, one of the many factors relating to our electricity issues is the fact that we had such a big influx of people across our borders. Those people had to be housed, fed, they need health care, and at some point, there is just not enough resources to go around. Has Charles considered this? Has he considered the negative effect on the British people when he criticized the repatriation of refugees to Rwanda? And now at the Commonwealth Summit, he is poking his nose into the education system, wanting to make the history of slavery a compulsory part of the education system. Now, I want to tell you something. We are homeschooling my grandson, like I said before, and annually we have a choice. We can educate him according to the South African Department of Education syllabus, or we can teach him using the Cambridge syllabus. Now, the Cambridge syllabus, as you may have guessed, is British, okay? So I have a fairly good idea what is in the syllabus. And now I can tell you without even going to expand on the subject, except to say that slavery is already incorporated in the history and development of trade. Yes, that is the chapter or part of both their history and geography lessons. Okay? Now, the reason why it's incorporated in the history and development of trade is unfortunately that humans were traded alongside ivory, glass beads, spices, and so on. But it is obviously not enough for King Charles. He wants 10-year-olds to be traumatized by vivid images of abuse during slavery, or so it seems, because as I said, it is already incorporated in the syllabus and not only in just one subject but in two, according to the Cambridge syllabus of education coming from Britain, under which a number of children, I don't know, half or all of them in Britain, are taught accordingly. But you see, he doesn't bother to actually go look. He will make statements because that is what he wants. And what Charlie wants, Charlie gets. Okay, never mind. Let's move on. Now for the excuses that I hear. Oh, he will stop meddling once he's king. No, he won't. It is common knowledge that he already fulfills a very large portion of the role as king. And yet, he hasn't stopped meddling. And as he is being protected and not called out, he will likely continue and even get bolder as his power increases. Oh, but Bookworm, you are nitpicking because you don't like Charles. No, I'm not nitpicking. Have you forgotten about the spider letters and the many, many other incidences of political interference? I've even done videos on that. Oh, you hate the monarchy is one I hear very often. Seriously, why on earth would I hate the monarchy? Have you ever heard me spew hatred or vile rhetoric about the Queen, Camilla, Sophie, Edward, Catherine, William, or the Dukes of Kent or any others. And besides, look at my own country and see how well being a republic worked out for us. I acknowledge that countries with a constitutional monarchy has some of the most stable governments. Or shall I replace that with had? The fact that I do not think Charles is fit to be king does not mean that I hate or even dislike the idea of a constitutional monarchy. On the one hand, I absolutely love it. On the other hand, when and if there are so many dubious and underhanded actions perpetrated by future king, I am starting to question my approval and support of a constitutional monarch. Like I said about Harry and Meghan's children, this situation should never have arisen where we question their legitimacy. And the same applies here to Charles. The question to the validity and integrity of a monarch or future monarch should never have arisen. And unfortunately, it is not because of me or even you that it has, but because of Charles's own conduct. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I could continue this discussion for another hour or two, but if I do, I'll never get it loaded before the power goes out again. The other thing is that I spent another night in hospital because my blood pressure went 201 over 110 yet again. But hopefully, now that I had a very, very good doctor who did all the necessary tests, I will have the right medication and we won't have a repeat of the same thing soon. So we got home at about 1 a.m. and I am rather tired, but I'm feeling much better. So until we meet again on the next video, please you take good care of yourselves. Until we meet again on the next video. Bye.